House will come to order. Members will please take your seats. House will come to order. We have a supplemental calendar that has been distributed, but while it's being distributed on the floor, if I can have your attention, please. House will please come to order and members will take your seats. I had kind of an extraordinary request that we normally don't entertain these kind of requests, but being that tonight's crossover and we've had a really good day and we have a senior member of this body who's made a special request of me. I'll recognize the gentleman that loves that cherry wine from down on the coast. He had a request. I'll go ahead and let y'all know, and I'm going to allow him to go ahead and let the body know about it. That we bring a bill that he was partial to, House Bill 212. He wants to bring it back out. Is that an accurate?
Mr. Speaker, being the Speaker, you know what you're talking about is strictly in the interest of safety and beauty. I just think it's just imperative that we give it a whirl around.
Did y'all get it? A whirl around. Y'all know we had a nice debate on a bill that dealt with, what was that we dealt with that? Was it mobile barbershops?
The mobile barbershops will be coming up in an unprecedented move to get on the calendar right after crossover, Mr. Chairman. We'll talk about that.
That whirl around, I think, was the hair braiding bill.
The hair braiding bill, it was not really hair braiding, Mr. Chairman. It was three other parts of the hair. But we had such passion in that bill until I wanted us to wake up by debating that bill again.
Well, I think we'll just put it on the board there, Representative, and see what the folks want to do. If you're amenable to that, we'll just vote it and see. What do you think?
Let's don't get carried away with the evening. Give me a couple of minutes to rally the troops.
Understood. I think we're about ready to go. I've never had too much fun. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to House Bill 126?
House Bill 126 by Representative Smith of the 18th, being entitled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 6 and Title 5 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to appellate practice so as to change a provision relating to judgments deemed directly appealable. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Judiciary and Non-Civil, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Representative Tyler Paul Smith is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of this august body, I bring to you House Bill 126. This bill is in response to two recent Georgia Supreme Court cases. In short, this makes direct appeal of a conviction available when some charges are dead docketed. It also makes a direct appeal of a guilty plea subject to judicial discretion rather than automatic. It also allows prosecutors more time to respond to amended motions for new trial, and it also reinstates meaningful access to request post-conviction review from the court. I would be remiss if I didn't thank both the prosecuting attorneys, counsel, and GACDL for working so diligently on this bill. Mr. Speaker, that's the bill. I'll yield for two questions.
Gentleman has no questions.
With that, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield the well and ask this body's favorable consideration.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill. The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 172, the nays 1. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, if you'll read the caption to House Bill 219-219.
House Bill 219 by Representative Hilton of the 48th to be entitled an act to amend Article 11, Chapter 1 of Title 7 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to records and reports of currency transactions so as to provide for venue for the offense of money laundering. This bill having referred to the Committee of Judiciary and Non-Civil, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Members, will you give your attention to the gentleman in the well? Give your attention and your respect to the gentleman in the well as he presents the bill. Representative Hilton is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the chamber here. Today I'm honored to present with you House Bill 219. House Bill 219 deals with a subject that I think all of us are unfortunately all too familiar with. Imagine you get an email from your quote-unquote boss that says, hey, I need you to Venmo me some money to cover a work expense. You Venmo that money over, and then a few days later you realize that email from your boss was off by one digit or one letter. All of a sudden that money is gone. That money is in another state, say North Dakota, and you, the victim, are left without any kind of justice because now the venue for that crime is where the assets are held, which are in North Dakota. This bill changes the venue of where we can prosecute that crime to where the victim resides. It applies to either money laundering or theft and electronic currency. So with that, I will stand for questions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You have no questions.
Appreciate your favorable consideration. Thank you.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? Excuse me. The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 172, the nays 1. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to House Bill 228-228?
House Bill 228 by Representative Dempsey of the 13th be entitled an act to amend Code Section 23-411 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to definitions regarding tuition equalization grants at private colleges and universities so as to expand the definition of approved school. This bill having referred to the Committee on Higher Education, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
The lady from Rome, Chair Lady Dempsey, is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For those of you who have been here a little while, you realize you will have heard this bill for the fourth time now. We've done pretty well in the House, but it gets a little bogged down across the way, so we'll try it again. This is to help a very specific need in our state. In 2011, the Tuition Equalization Grant Program started, and it helped our private schools and universities have just a little bit of help for their students. They can't qualify for HOPE, so this helped them. Every school at that time, there were 33 of them qualified and were brought into the program. Since then, it has been very difficult, and there should be a high bar, very difficult, next to impossible, to bring a new school in. This bill addresses the critical nursing crisis that we have in our state. It actually applies very strictly and tightly. If you look at it, it is only for a school of nursing. They have a high graduation rate, a passage rate of 85%. It is very specific. The school has been a bricks and mortar school in our state for 12 years. They're very well established. Many of the students that attend actually are in their second and third career. They're very serious about it. It's not an accelerated program, but it can be accomplished in 3 years if you go succinctly all the way through each and every semester. It will help so much to give these students who often are struggling, balancing family, balancing a job at the same time that they're trying to become nurses in our state. So I hope that you will consider it and pass it again so we can get it across the way. Mr. Speaker, I yield or I will answer any questions if there are any.
The lady has a question to your left. Representative Moore is recognized for a question.
Good evening. Does the lady yield?
I do.
Okay. Well, it sounds like a great bill. What I want to know is, this is for one specific school or
Well,
all nursing schools?
If there were any other schools that met the exact outline in the measure, they could fit, but at this time in Georgia, it is only for a nursing school, a nursing program to extend that grant eligibility to nursing students.
Does the lady further yield?
I do.
Now, at what year are the students able to apply for this? Year 1, year 3?
They will be able to apply year 1, but it takes a little while to ramp this up, 18 months to 24 actually. So we're preparing for something that we can't do immediately to get the grant. And it also is so tightly drawn at this point that you must apply and enroll at any such institution by July 1, 2025.
Does the lady further yield for
I
one
do.
more question? So are we making it maybe difficult for the student to get the loan? Is there a certain GPA, like the Hope Scholarship, for them to maintain it?
It is. This is so narrowly drawn because it is so hard to get in. We want to try, in all honesty, to help this program and see if therefore they are able to do it. And if they are, and if it does increase nursing capacity, then it would be something to revisit and see what we could do.
What would that GPA look like?
They, so, let me go here just a minute and get to that for you. Just a minute. You know, I will okay, so they have to have a high school diploma, a state-approved high school equivalency HSE program, a degree from an accredited post-secondary education. They're able to also participate in the Pell Grant program. And when you are eligible for post-secondary education tuition equalization grants, it opens the door for other grants as well.
I'm sorry, one more, please.
The GPA, I can't
Yeah,
tell you
the
specifically
GPA.
what the school requires, but this is only a baccalaureate degree granting institution. So they will have done well to get into this point.
Lady has one more
Thank
question.
Yes.
There you go. Let's see. How about would Lady yield for another question?
Yes, certainly.
Representative Glaze out to your left has a question. Representative Glaze is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentle lady yield?
I certainly will.
Is it not true that this bill for tuition equalization grant is for students who actually get accepted into the program?
They do.
Is
They
it
do.
not also true that these students have had a high bar to actually attain that opportunity to attend this school?
Thank you, Representative Glaze. They actually have.
And so as they complete the program year 1, 2, and 3, the tuition equalization grant is offered to them every year. And in 3 years, they can be in the talent pool for Georgia as nurses. Is that not true?
That is absolutely true, which is a very important goal.
Thank you so much for bringing this bill.
Thank you. And Mr. Speaker, I yield the well and ask for your favorable support to help nurses continue to meet the capacity needs of our state.
The lady has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? Chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? All members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 168, the nays 7. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to House Bill 181?
House Bill 181 by Representative Townsend of the 179th, be entitled an act to amend Chapter 13 and Title 16 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to controlled substances so as to provide for Schedule I controlled substances. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary and Non-Civil, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
The gentleman from the Golden Isles, Representative Townsend, is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is about House Bill 181. This is a constituent-based bill. First came to attention we need to tighten up the guidelines and regulations that this House did a few years ago. We had 2 cases back home where one got hooked on kratom, eventually committed suicide. Another young man got on kratom, was through a halfway house where he was going in there because of opioids. Once he got hooked on kratom, unfortunately, he developed psychotic behaviors, eventually wound up in a mental health institution. So after talking to many medical professionals, public safety professionals, we've all come together and said, what can we do? We hooked up with the American Kratom Association through many hours of testimony. We all come to agreement of what to do, of requiring stricter labels, prescriptive, where you understand what to take in a certain size dose. We also require you have to be age 21 to purchase this food product. It's a plant-based product, and also it's going to be behind the counter. So we've all come together realizing we want to save Georgians, really keep them from getting harmed, and so we're working together now to do that. So I appreciate your favorable vote, and we'll take any questions if anyone has any, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman yields for a question. Representative Kendrick, on your left, has a question. Representative Kendrick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it not true that I serve on the Judiciary Non-Civil Committee and I never want to hear anything else about kratom ever again?
Yes, ma'am. It was only 12 hours. 5 meetings.
As we say, thoroughly vetted. You have a question to your extreme left. Representative Yasmin Neal has a question to your left. Look further to your left.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gentleman yield.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it not true that we had a lot of conversations day and night via text and call on this issue?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
And also, is it not true that I appreciate your integrity, your inclusiveness for both sides and hearing everything when it comes to organizations just the bipartisanship overall. I appreciate you and your integrity, and like I said in the committee, I've heard you when you didn't think you were being seen or heard, and I appreciate you in this process.
Thank you. That means a lot. And, Mr. Speaker, it was a pleasure to work with this committee, and we really talked and really worked out what's the best for Georgia, and it was a bipartisan effort. I couldn't ask for anything more as a freshman.
Gentlemen, yield for another question.
Yes, sir.
Seems like y'all could have discussed this down on the coast.
Yes, sir,
but
we
I guess
can.
you couldn't. Chairman Saines, to your left, has a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Is this not true? This is your first bill?
Yes, sir.
And that you chose a first bill that impacts the lives of all Georgians by making them safer?
Yes, sir.
And that I also missed dinner for this bill?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Great.
And I appreciate that. Mr. Speaker, I'll yield the well if you'd like me to.
I would like you to. Oh, did I say that? Oh, I'm sorry. The gentleman has yielded the well. No, you were doing good. You had no more questions, Representative Townsend. I was just having a little fun with you. Excellent job on your first bill. Sounds like a pretty good bill, and sounds like you wore them out on working on the bill as well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? Chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 171, the nays 3. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Congratulations. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to House Bill 283?
House Bill 283 by Representative Camp, the 135th, to be titled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 1 of Chapter 8 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions applicable to sales and use tax so as to change the manner and method of imposing and collecting such taxes on new manufactured single-family structures. This bill having referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair Lady Camp is recognized to present House Bill 283.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 283 has two parts. Both are aimed to fight the housing challenges in Georgia. The first part allows first-time home buyers to receive up to a 1.2% income tax credit on a home valued at $250,000 purchased from July of 2023 to the end of June 2024. The second part, manufactured homes are currently taxed on the sales price when sold to the first buyer. This is different than stick-built homes, which are taxed only on the materials. This bill aims to bring parity between how stick-built homes and manufactured homes are taxed. Solving housing issues in Georgia will take many different approaches to achieve success, but House Bill 283 contains two actions that should help Georgians live where they need to live and enjoy the places they do live in. And I'm open for any questions, Mr. Speaker.
You have no questions.
Thank you. I will yield the well.
The lady has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 174, the nays 1. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to House Bill 392?
House Bill 392 by Representative Jaspers to the 11th to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 12 of Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to commissions and other agencies so as to provide for the creation of the Georgia Endowment for Teaching Professionals to foster a public-private partnership for support of post-secondary teaching professionals. This bill I referred to the Committee on Higher Education. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chairman Jaspers is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, House Bill 392 attempts to solve a big problem we have in the technical college system of Georgia. If you've had time to talk to a leader in your community with TCSG or someone in your community, you've heard that they can't teach a class or offer a trade in your school because they don't have a teacher for that trade because they can't afford them. You know, the teacher can earn more, way more, out of the business than they can in the classroom working for their trade. This bill will help solve this by creating an endowment fund that will go out and raise dollars and then choose where to place those dollars to pay that nursing teacher, or in my case, an auto body repair craftsman. The act will not take effect and this group can raise $50,000 to begin with. I hope you can take time to vote yes for this bill to help our technical schools and help them teach more of our young people. I have to ask for your favorable consideration. And that's my bill, Mr. Speaker. Be glad to yield for any questions.
You have a question. The gentleman in the right down the center aisle, Chairman Chokus, has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chairman, will you yield?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that the majority of the teachers in our technical college system work part-time and they're adjunct teachers, and so this bill would enable them to make ends meet while instructing our youth in the trades that this state so desperately needs?
Yes, sir. It will give the schools the opportunity to fund those better.
You have no further questions.
Thank you, members.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. The yeas were 175, the nays 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to House Bill 412
House Bill 412 by Representative Williamson to the 112th to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to income taxes so as to repeal a limitation on the types of partnerships that may elect to pay income taxes at the entity level. This bill has been referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chairman Williamson is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fellow House members, the majority of businesses in Georgia are organized as something other than a C corporation. The vast majority are organized as either LLCs, multimillionaire LLCs, partnerships, S corps, and the such. We passed 2 years ago a bill, House Bill 149, that allowed these pass-through entities to pay their state income taxes at the entity level. Got them, it's no fiscal cost to the state. In fact, the state gets their money from straight from the entity up front, oftentimes 13 months in advance. And so it works well for the state. It's no fiscal note to the state. And this bill repeals an unintentional limitation on the types of partnerships that are otherwise be eligible for this. The IRS is good with this methodology, as is the Georgia Department of Revenue. I'd be happy to take any questions, Mr. Speaker.
You have no questions.
All right. I yield the well and ask for your favorable consideration.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And their clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 175, the nays 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to HB 482? 482.
House Bill 482 by Representative Saints, the 180th, to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to income taxes so as to provide for clarification with respect to an income tax credit for establishing or relocating quality jobs. This bill I refer to the Committee on Ways and Means. That committee recommends that this bill pass by Rules Committee substitute.
Chairman Sains is recognized to explain the Rules Committee substitute. Chairman Sains.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Rules Committee substitute should be on your desk. It modifies the preamble to take away legislative intent. What House Bill 482 does is clarify that the quality jobs tax credit is for profit corporations only, which are the only corporations that have our 5.75 corporate income tax rate. However, the modification does look to amend an issue that the Hospital Association gave us, which ensures that legislative intent is not in the bill, so that pending litigation that they currently have with the Department of Revenue is not impacted. With that, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield the well if there's no questions.
The gentleman has no questions.
Thank you.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to withdrawing the committee substitute? Chair hears none. The committee substitute is withdrawn. Is there any objection to adopting the substitute offered by the Committee on Rules? Chair hears none. The Rules Committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 170, the nays 4. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Chair recognizes Representative Jordan Ridley. I got it. Welcome. Is this your first time in the well, Representative? Yes, sir. Good luck. I was impressed by the representative. Clerk will read the caption to HB 524.
HB 524 by Representative Ridley, the 22nd, to be entitled an act to amend Title 40 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to motor vehicles and traffic so as to provide for the issuance of a Class C driver's license to operators of certain three-wheeled motor vehicles. This bill is assigned to the Committee on Motor Vehicles. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Representative Ridley, you need to take just a minute. Now you got it. Now we're going to recognize Representative Jordan Ridley to present the bill, his first bill. Let's hear it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gentlemen and women of the House of Representatives, today I bring you House Bill 524. House Bill 524 clarifies language to say three-wheel vehicles which have seat belts and a frame to partially or fully enclose the operator are not motorcycles. The goal of this bill is to allow certain three-wheel vehicles being produced today to be classified as a car instead of a motorcycle, allowing the operator to not have to wear helmets or goggles. And with that, I ask for your favorable consideration and will yield for questions.
Boy, these three-wheelers are drawing a lot of attention. Gentlemen, yield for a question.
I do.
Representative Bentley in the rear of the chamber to your left has a question. Representative Bentley is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
Representative, your bill is relating to three-wheel vehicles, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So can you help me to understand how a three-wheel vehicle will help my type of industry?
Well, I'm not really sure, but you know, they're partially enclosed and they're a little safer than our motorcycles, so they might make them get to you a little slower.
I don't think I heard you, Mr. Can you repeat that, please? It's a little noisy back here. I'm sorry.
It might make them a little slower getting to you because they have a little more safety features than a motorcycle.
They'll be a little slower getting to me?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know the type of industry that I'm in? We already drive slow?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Bentley, we all know the type of industry you're in. I can assure you of that. Gentleman, yield for another question.
I do.
Representative Al is recognized for a question to your right.
Here.
Back towards your seat.
Thank you. Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
This is a real question. If these three-wheeled vehicles are going to be considered equivalent to cars under state law, if this bill passes, will they have to comply with the same safety standards as cars do? For example, will they have to have safety standards like a steering wheel airbag or side curtain airbags or anti-lock brakes?
they'll have seat belts and other things similar to a car because they fully or partially enclose. But it's more like when you see a Jeep with the doors off that are on or off. It's more of that level of safety, more than your current motorcycles, but not as much as a car.
Well, cars do have to comply with that safety standard, but if not, if these three-wheel vehicles do not have to comply with those same car safety standards, is it appropriate to remove helmet requirements and eye protection requirements?
In these vehicles, a lot of them do have a roof. They have windshields. So if there was an accident, you have the same safety you would have if you had a helmet or goggles. You actually have more in most of these
Except for the
situations.
Airbags. Thank you, sir.
Gentlemen, yield for one more question.
I do.
Representative Anulowicz, to your extreme left, back over in the corner.
Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
These vehicles, so they are going to be treated like motor vehicles, like cars. Are they, this is actually a real question, are they taxed at an ad valorem basis, or are they, or does the buyer pay sales tax when they purchase these vehicles?
From my understanding, they're like a regular vehicle, so they will pay ad valorem tax.
And they're titled and...
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. You've done great.
Thank you.
Gentleman has no further questions.
With that, I ask for your favorable consideration.
Good job. The gentleman yields the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 168, the nays 7. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to H. What do we have? Let's see. For what purpose does Representative Floor Leader McDonald rise?
Mr. Speaker.
Is this a parliamentary inquiry?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Would it please the chair, I have a doctor on standby and the funeral caucus on standby for this next presenter. Would that please the chair? And if he doesn't succeed, then we're going to let the funeral caucus fight over the carcass.
That's an ominous beginning, but I think he's going to do well. I really do. Well, let's see. Let's see how it goes. The clerk will read the caption to HB 531.
House Bill 531 by Representative Barrett of the 24th to be entitled an act to amend Title 36 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to local government so as to provide for local government investment policies. This bill has been referred to the Committee on Bank and Banking. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
I can't add to that. Chair recognizes Representative Carter Barrett to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, what a great privilege to be in this august chamber. House Bill 531 encourages local governments to have written policies when they make investments. This is the national standard, and this bill promotes transparency. It also expands the list of investment options for local governments, aligning them with options currently available to the state and state agencies. This bill has bipartisan support and passed unanimously from banks and banking, and I'd love to take any questions you might have.
You have no questions. Excellent job.
Thank you, sir.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Smart, smart man. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee's substitute? The chair hears none. The committee's substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 170, the nays 3. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to House Bill 563? 563.
House Bill 563 by Representative Leverett of the 123rd to be entitled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 19 and Title 45 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated the Fair Employment Practices Act of 1978, so as to provide for hearing before an administrative law judge and to change provisions relating to the appointment of hearing officers. This bill I refer to the Committee on Judiciary. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Representative Leverett is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I'm asking you tonight to vote for House Bill 563. This is a department bill requested by the Commission on Equal Opportunity. That commission enforces federal civil rights laws within public employment with the state. Traditionally, the way they have done this is by, if you have a complaint, you file your complaint against an agency, and then that matter is heard by a special master who is a lawyer that is retained from private practice. As Chairman Perkle will tell you, that can get rather expensive, and it has gotten expensive for the commission, and they are now trying to shift to hearing these complaints by the Office of State Administrative Hearings. So that's the primary change in the bill. The only exception, if Office of State Administrative Hearings is the respondent, they would still use the special master. They've also got a provision here allowing amendment of complaints and some provisions on enforcing discovery, compelling production of documents and testimony. So that's the bill. This is needed by the commission to help conserve precious state resources and cut their costs, which are rather severe with this special master proceeding, I'm told. So that's the bill, Mr. Speaker. I'll yield for any questions.
You have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm glad I followed the advice of the Louisiana politician who, when he was running, pledged that he would be as honest as the times will allow. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That's certainly you. The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 175, the nays 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to House Bill 538? 538.
House Bill 538 by Representative Ballard of the 147th, to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to elementary and secondary education, so as to provide for the Georgia Early Literacy Act. This bill then referred to the Committee on Education. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Representative Ballard is recognized to present the bill. Is this your first bill?
Yes, sir.
Okay, her first bill as well. The lady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise tonight to present House Bill 538, which is the Georgia Early Literacy Act. This act is life-changing for our state's children. It was a bipartisan bill, and it was passed unanimously out of committee. The end of third grade marks when children transition from learning to read to reading to learn. Reading on grade level by the end of third grade is one of the biggest predictors of later success in life. If a child is reading on grade level at the end of third grade, they are more likely to graduate on time, they are more likely to be gainfully employed, and they are less likely to go to jail. Right now, between 36% and 56% of our state's third graders are not reading on grade level. While Mississippi is surging ahead. And I know, right? Because we've all heard the jokes. We all know the jokes. But what changed in Mississippi is a decade ago, they began using reading curriculum that is based in science. Cognitive neuroscientists have figured out how to look at a brain, and we now know how to teach a person to read. We know which ways are evidence-based and based in science. We now know which ways work best for children to learn to read. So it is important that we use these curriculum that are based in science, that are evidence-based. This bill will require that Georgia schools do just that. Our schools will choose from curricula that are based in science, that are evidence-based and are proven to teach our kids to read. But right now, and this was the most shocking thing I found, right now our students who are in college are actually not being taught to teach our children to read. So when they get into the classroom, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to read. And most of us, we're kind of getting to be a certain age in here. We learn to read the same way. We learn to read with phonics and sounding words out. And that's what we're going to return to, these tried and true foundational principles that are the building blocks of good learning, of good reading. So one other thing this bill does, it's going to give these kids strategies. Since they will have foundational principles of learning how to read, nothing will stop them. They will be able to apply these strategies as they go through life and read ever increasingly difficult books. I don't know. My children were great readers because I made sure they were great readers. They could read before they went to school. But not everybody has an English teacher for a mama. Not everybody has their kids reading, and we send our kids to school with the hope and desire and expectation that they will learn to read. Right now, we assess our children at the end of third grade. This bill will require assessments in kindergarten and first and second, because if we wait till the end of third grade to assess them, it's already too late. They're already not reading on grade level, and I can't imagine the frustration that these children face as they go through school. I don't want to keep you here too long. We've been here long enough, but this provides a timeline to get all this done, because you know as well as I do, if we don't have a timeline and we don't have a map, it doesn't get done. So I hope that you will stand with me and make sure our children get what they need in our schools. I look forward to your favorable consideration. Let's get our kids reading.
Wow. Lady, you yield for a question?
I do.
Members, I want y'all to give the lady in the well your full, undivided attention. Let's see. This first question, he should know a lot about education. Chairman Dubnik has a question up the middle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the lady yield?
I will yield.
Representative, is it not true that I chaired a study committee on literacy last year?
I believe so.
Is it also further not true that reading proficiently on grade level by the end of the third grade is one of the greatest predictors of success that we know of, and that this bill enables our children and future generations of our workforce to succeed?
Absolutely.
And if you'll yield for one final question.
One more.
Is it not further true that a number of members of the Education Committee implored you and those who will oversee and execute this bill, as it is referred to in line 43, the Department of Education, that while there are dates in this bill, we implore the Department of Education to do things as soon as practicable? Is that not true?
That is absolutely true.
Lady, further yield?
For one more.
Okay, one more. Boy, that's a hard one there.
Two if they're good questions.
Okay, let's try that. I'm kind of liking that. You've got a whole slew of them. I think that's a word. Let's call on another gentleman that knows a lot about higher ed. Is from the 6th House District, Representative Jason Ridley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentlelady yield?
I do.
I can relate since I'm still on the third grade level of reading. In all seriousness, on line 111 through 115, where it talks about that such training programs should develop and promote teachers' knowledge, skills, teach all students to read, including students with dyslexia. Can you tell me exactly what kind of training the teacher will have to teach a kid with dyslexia?
Well, so with the foundational principles and going back to a phonics-based foundational principle education, you know, letters are just simply symbols, right? They're symbols for sounds. So when you are teaching a child to read, no matter if they, you know, I guess are a child who reads in the regular way or a dyslexic child who sees letters and characters differently, they will learn to associate the symbol they see with that certain sound. And they will be able to translate that into their learning. One of the biggest backers of this bill is the Decoding Dyslexia group. So they are very excited about this because they believe that it will work for their children.
And as a father with dyslexia, child, and dyscalculia, I appreciate y'all bringing this bill. I just want to make sure that they're not trying to use special ed teachers to try to teach kids with dyslexia, because it don't work, and you know that as well as I do. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lady, yield for a couple more.
Oh, absolutely.
Lady from the 58th, Representative Park Cannon, has a question to your left.
Thank you. Do you yield?
I do.
Just a question about the funding for this. We know that educators are struggling, working really hard right now. This is additional requirements for them. Where is the funding?
Well, school districts have curriculum money in their budgets every year to purchase new curricula. And they will be given a list, and it is very possible that the list that is put out by the Board of Education might be so comprehensive that they might not have to purchase anything new. We did take out, the original bill had literacy coaches in it, which would have been such an additional burden that we did take that out to make it where it could be put in the schools very quickly. And the timeline is such that if the Department of Education thinks that they need more funding, they can request that. The timeline is wide enough for them to do that.
Thank you. And just one follow-up. We know that parents are also going through a lot, and sometimes 3 weeks of you telling a parent something, you don't see a change in behavior. So it doesn't really have anything in here to say what happens if parents don't comply. How are you working on those students' reading after that?
And the original bill had as part of the team that the parent had to be involved. But when I was teaching, my students who needed the most help, like I couldn't get in touch with a parent. And I hate to say that, but it's the truth. So we took that part out. The parent, if the child needs intensive remediation and intensive help, the parent will be notified. They will be asked to be a part of the team. They will be able to request a conference at any time. But if we can't get a hold of a parent, the reading instruction will begin. I felt, as I was writing and drafting and talking to people, I felt it was better. Do we spend 6 months trying to get hold of mama and daddy, or do we spend 6 months teaching this child to read? And we opted for teaching this child to read.
Lady, you yield for one final question.
One final question.
Last one. A former Board of Education member, I believe, Representative Will Wade, to your right in the back.
Does the gentlelady yield?
I do.
Is it not true that you have spent countless hours listening to all advocates on both sides of this issue? There's things in this bill that some folks wanted that didn't make it, and there's some things that cause pause to education folks, but that you've worked diligently to listen to all those folks.
I'm sure tired enough that I feel like that I have worked nonstop for about 2 weeks, talking to people, listening to people, and this is a great compromise bill.
And is it not further true that I'm extremely passionate about this because I have a young lady who I hope will be in the class of 2032 and a young son that will be in the class of 2034, and this has an opportunity to shape their opportunity to succeed and to be an economic driver for the 2030s and 2040s in the state of Georgia.
Absolutely.
Thank you for bringing this bill.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
The lady has yielded the well. A very good, comprehensive presentation. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. For what purpose does Representative Mary Frances Williams rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that when we have the opportunity to implement an evidence-based program like this that could be life-changing for so many children, that we need to dig deep and find the money we need to fund it in a way that it can be truly successful?
I'm sure this House agrees with the lady in her assessment. I think we're doing just that as we support education in this state. For what purpose does Representative Holly rise?
Parliament inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, isn't it true that it's probably not wise to hit that red button and go to the green if you're going to quickly look away from your button?
The gentleman certainly knows of what he speaks. One more parliamentary inquiry. Representative Barnes, why do you rise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that a healthy breakfast and healthy lunch also leads to better reading?
Does for me. I'm sure the lady I'm sure the lady knows of what she speaks. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of the bill. The yeas were 174, the nays 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to House Bill 340?
House Bill 340 by Representative Corbett of the 174th to be titled an act to amend subpart 2 of part of 6 of Article 6 of Chapter 2 entitled 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to conditions of employment in elementary and secondary education so as to provide for daily duty-free planning periods for teachers in grades 6 through 12. This bill having referred to the Committee on Education. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chairman Corbett is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, I'll bring before you House Bill 340. What we're seeking to address with House Bill 340 is three things: literacy, student achievement, and school safety. By ensuring that teachers have their planning periods, it allows them to work on lesson design, grading, assessment, data analysis, student achievement, growing skills and knowledge of the profession of teaching. All this leads to better student outcomes. While protecting their planning period, we also allow, when necessary due to extreme economic conditions or unforeseen, unavoidable personnel shortages, a local unit of administration may require that teacher to forego that planning period to supervise students for up to 1 day a week, or except when necessary for safety our students and staff. And we also encourage them to use that planning period to go over the school safety plan and incorporate that into their planning lessons when appropriate. And that's what the bill does, Mr. Speaker, and I will stand for any questions if there are any.
Mr. Chairman, you have no questions.
Thank you. I appreciate your favorable consideration.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 173, the nays 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you please read the caption to House Bill 541?
House Bill 541 by Representative Lumsden of the 12th to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 6 and Title 40 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions relative to uniform rules of the road so as to provide for proper procedure for passing a postal service vehicle. This bill having referred to the Committee on Motor Vehicles. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chairman Lumsden is recognized to present the bill.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, I bring to you House Bill 541. All this bill does is to add postal service vehicles to an existing code section that defines how a motorist approaching a sanitation vehicle during curbside pickup is to respond. Like the sanitation vehicle, which travels in a stop-and-go manner, the postal service vehicle also does likewise So this bill simply adds that postal service vehicles to that existing code section, and all the provisions in the current code section apply. That's the bill. I'd appreciate your favorable consideration.
Yes, sir. The gentleman's yielded the well. He has no questions. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 167, the nays 5. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to House Bill 581?
House Bill 581, by the representative from the 146, to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 28-541.1 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to economic analysis of certain tax benefits of law or proposed law and analysis on performance and outcomes of Code Section 33-125. This bill having been assigned to the Committee on Budget and Fiscal Affairs Oversight, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chairman Blackman is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, fellow members. Some of you may remember Senate Bill 6 from a couple of years ago that provided that we run 10 audits per year selected by the respective bodies, House and Senate. This has incorporated some changes that were suggested. We adjust the dates. We give deference to credits and exemptions that are up for a sunset, and it provides for recommendations to be provided with these economic analyses. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any, Mr. Speaker.
You have no questions.
Thank you. I yield the well and ask for the body's favorable consideration.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 175, the nays 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, if you read the caption to House Bill 374.
House Bill 374 by Representative Thomas, the 21st, to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 36 and Title 36 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to municipal annexation of territory so as to repeal certain provisions relating to authority, procedures, identification, and status of lands relative to municipal de-annexation. This bill I refer to the Committee on Governmental Affairs. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Representative Brad Thomas is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to present House Bill 374, LC 472345S. I know that we have a lot of bills left here to hear today, so I'm going to keep this really short. This bill creates an alternative method for de-annexation via application to the county governing authority. The method only applies to parcels located on the boundary of the city and must have the same contiguity requirements as the city would require during an annexation. It does not remove the current process of de-annexation by act of General Assembly or municipal governments. It only adds an alternative process. This would require 100% every single resident to agree to be de-annexed prior to application, and it limits it to only 10 parcels per application. So the potential impacts to cities are small in scope and negligible in impact. Additionally, it addresses bonded indebtedness by requiring bonds issued on properties to still be paid for. Those are lines 69 through 80. And with that, I will take any questions.
You have a question if you'll yield.
I will.
Representative Wilkerson, to your left in the back, has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
So I just want to verify, you did say that this would have to require 100% annexation, and so if people were on the edge of the city, would not create any islands or anything, it would just be that 100% right now, right?
It would be at 100%. They would have to touch the municipal boundary, and it would be limited to 10 parcels.
Okay, does the gentleman further yield?
I do.
Is it true that the author has worked with both GMA and ACCG to try to encompass any issues and concerns that they may have, and you will continue to work with them as this bill moves forward?
I believe my friend knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Gentleman, yield for another question.
I do.
Representative Oliver, to your left.
So, gentlemen, yield.
I do. If you remember, I gave you my decaf cup
And
of
I
coffee
really
earlier.
enjoyed it. I appreciate it. However, sir, I have 2 independent school districts in my House district. If 10 parcels decide to de-annex, where do those children go to school, and how do the taxpayers get compensated for the loss of those school children and possible school buildings?
Well, and I think that that's what this comes down to, a decision of a property owner. If it was me and my kids were in the municipal school system, I would take that very seriously before I de-annexed. So I would say that this is something that somebody needs to take in consideration.
As a
But they
gentleman,
would, my children, if it was my kids, they would wind up going to the county school system.
as a matter of law, they would have to go to the county.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
Gentleman, yield for another question.
Absolutely.
Lady from the 170th chair, Lady Houston, has a question to your right.
I just wonder what would happen to the municipal services like water and sewage that are being offered? How would you do that?
Well, specifically, Georgia Constitutional Article 9, Section 2, Paragraph 3B2, Supplementary Powers Clause says no municipality may exercise any of the powers listed in subparagraph A, which is 14 things, including police and fire, parks and rec, and code enforcement.
Just answer my question, honey.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
Say it again.
Well, what happens about if you're
They-
doing water and sewage? What happens about that?
It would continue to be served. MEAGs serve outside the municipal boundaries, and so do water and serve. Marietta Water Authority would be a prime example. They still operate.
Like when your sewage tore up, the city still
No,
have to go
there
out
would-
there and fix it.
Currently, if you live outside of MEAG and serviced by a MEAG, then if you live outside the municipal boundary, typically you would pay more for power. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
You have one last question to your left in the rear. Representative Roger Bruce has a question.
Will the gentleman yield?
I will.
Just to follow up on an earlier question, you said a maximum of 10 parcels at a time. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's
Which
correct.
means that one large parcel could get out because that's 100% if they are contiguous. Is that correct?
That would be one of 10 parcels if it's contiguous. That's correct.
Which means that if one person that owns property that is contiguous, they don't like the city, they can get out by themselves.
Yes, that is correct. It doesn't have to be 10. It can be one. Just up no more than 10.
Thank you.
Gentleman has no further questions.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and I yield the well.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee's substitute? Chair hears none. The committee's substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 144, the nays 28. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. We're going back to the first supplemental calendar now, and we're going to ask the clerk to read the caption to House Bill 189. 189.
House Bill 189 by Representative Meeks, the 178th, to be entitled an act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 6 of Title 32 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to dimensions and weights of vehicles and loads, so as to provide for an allowable variance for weight limitations upon a vehicle or load. This bill has referred to the Committee on Transportation. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chairman Meeks is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman will suspend just for a minute. We've got a little bit of work left to do. Not a whole lot, but a little bit left to do. So let's give the member in the well your full attention. Gentlemen, we'll continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, appreciate the opportunity to bring to you tonight House Bill 189, LC 393838S. Mr. Speaker, I know we got a long way to go and we got a short time to get there. As we take into consideration this House measure, as was mentioned in the caption of truck weights, ladies and gentlemen, what we are doing here is we're actually reducing current weight limit from 95,000 currently being run on our roads to a variance, an 80,000 pound variant, an 80,000 pound with a 10% variance of 88,000. On page 2 of the bill, starting on line 17, the current code is line 19 through 29 of the industries that are currently running under a variance of forestry, poultry, cotton feed to the farm, granite, solid waste, and concrete. The other thing we do in the bill, Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen of the House, is we add on line 48 certification that the tractor and trailer must meet or exceed the allowable variance under the law, as well as in section 2, adding fines for running overweight. As you will hear from other speakers, ladies and gentlemen, talking about various aspects of this piece of legislation, I want to tell you that one thing that we do is we bring Georgia in line with at least 3 of the states around us, that being Tennessee, Alabama, as well as Florida. I want to acknowledge and thank members of the Transportation Committee and Chairman Rick Jaspers. Many of you know that we had a marathon of a hearing on the first hearing. We voted it out, went to Rules Committee, went back to the Transportation Committee for a second hearing. And ladies and gentlemen, we have tried to make this more palatable for the industry as well as our community in which these roads that carry goods to and to market as these trucks carry goods to the market from their fields. The one thing that we heard from feed mills in Madison to a logger in Middle Georgia is that, you know, with additional weight limit, they are able to carry additional feed to farm to where it may be a delivery every 7 days versus every 9 days. We've heard testimony from loggers that he was actually able, with an increase in weight, to save $72 per trip. And ladies and gentlemen, with the tight margins in production all across the board today, $72 is significant whenever you're talking about moving freight around. As we continue debate on this bill, we started in a posture that included all commercial traffic. We took it back to the original code in the industries that I mentioned. But one of the things that you're going to hear, and it's on your desk, so I'm going to go ahead and address it while I'm here, ladies and gentlemen, is that Georgia has the fourth highest truck crash fatalities in the nation. Now, I want you to please understand and realize that that statistic is all commercial traffic. It's not just the section of the bill that describes which industries will be allowed to operate under this variance. This is all commercial traffic. For more than 20 years, our haulers have been able to operate at 84,000. We went to 95. We're going back to 88. One of the things that's on your desk that I would like to mention to you is when we talk about the crash data that was just mentioned, which is on the one of the sheets that was on your desk this morning. In 2021, fatal truck crashes involving logs accounted for just 2% of all fatal truck crashes. I want to repeat that. In 2021, fatal log truck crashes accounted for 2% of all fatal heavy truck crashes. And that is from data from Georgia Department of Transportation, Governor's Office of Highway Safety, NTSB, and National Center for Statistics and Analysis. You know, as we continue to have the debate, we're really talking about being able to move product, right? Trying to move product at a more economical avenue, trying to move more with less. We have a nationwide shortage of truck drivers, and as we look to finding ways to help the business community that has and can move product in a safe way, it's important that we take steps in the right direction to help them out. The supplemental budget that you passed this morning includes additional $50 million in DOT budget to help with the roads and bridges that will be talked about as we move forward with this consideration of this. I know that there is also additional funding being discussed. Chairman Rick Jaspers had a piece of legislation that will also redirect some funding for roads and bridges, as well as continued conversation with Chairman Hatchett on how we can work to better address these issues in rural Georgia. Couple of things on the minority report that was presented earlier in the session whenever the bill was introduced. You know, again, I want to look back and we talk about the violations of trucks, and nothing in this bill relinquishes the operator or the owner of a truck to operate in an unsafe manner. I am of the opinion that we need as a body to work with our Motor Carrier Compliance Division and working through and finding ways that we can increase the number of officers on the road. So as we do consider the late hour and where we are, where we're moving to, and where we're going to go, again, I think it's important that we take every opportunity possible to address the issues. I want to remind members again, you're going to hear lots of data. Some of it will be specific to forestry, some of it will not. But when we look at the overall commercial vehicle traffic, I want everyone to understand that within the body of this bill and what we are seeking to address is currently in code section. We are not adding any additional industries that can carry the weight limit of which we are speaking of an 80,000 pound base with a 10% variance. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I will yield for any questions.
You have a couple of questions. To your right, Representative Mac Jackson has a question. Representative Jackson, to your right.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Is it not true that when we talk about these heavier weights, that these vehicles would be able to haul animal feed, granite, raw ore, minerals, live poultry, cotton, wet concrete, solid waste, and any other agricultural farm products?
That is the current code, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Gentleman, further yield?
Yes, sir.
Representative Jason Ridley, to your right, has a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Is it not true whenever you talk about crashes of commercial vehicles, that includes like an F-350, 450, that anything that's got a DOT number on it, and those crashes are counted in that? Is that not correct?
If it has a DOT number, that is correct, yes, sir.
Is it not further true that we've heard a lot from ACCG and GMA that they're against this bill, but is it not true, Representative, that we're not elected by our mayors or commissioners or anybody else? We're elected by the 59,000 people that we represent.
The gentleman knows of what he speaks, and I will add to that, ladies and gentlemen, while ACCG is opposed to it, it was not a unanimous resolution for the organization within itself to oppose that, or oppose this legislation, excuse me.
Representative Adesanya, to your left, has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I have a CDL, Class A, and I got that because I wanted to learn how to drive a truck just for the sake of it. Right. So isn't it true that the heavier the weight of the truck, the longer it takes the truck to get to a complete stop?
As a responsible driver and a driver of those vehicles, the heavier it is, the longer it takes to stop, which also adds to the responsibility of the driver to make sure he is slowing down and getting to a stop before it's time to stop.
Chairman Stevens, to your left, has a question.
Gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
I want to make crystal clear what I'm voting on here. It's if we're going from 95,000 pounds that we're currently operating under to 88,000, I'm voting for a weight decrease. Is that not true?
The gentleman's correct.
Representative Hutchinson, to your right, has a question. Ladies recognized.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
I understand that you said earlier that we've added money to the supplemental budget to fix the roads and the bridges to accommodate the heavier trucks. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Does the gentleman further yield?
Yes, ma'am.
So we've added, if I understand correctly, we've added extra money to the budget to fix a problem that we're going to create if we pass this bill.
Well, there's been an argument that we're going to do the damage, so if that is indeed the case, I think we have to take a look at it and see where we are and where we've been in terms of the weight limits.
So yes is the answer.
So there is additional funding in the bill if that is the case. Mr. Speaker, if there are no further questions, I will yield the will and ask for your favorable consideration.
The gentleman has yielded the well. We have a member who would like to speak in opposition to the bill. Chairman Darlene Taylor and Representative Spencer Fry would both like to speak in opposition. There's 30 minutes to be divided between the two members. Chairman Taylor is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good evening, members of the House. Thank you for allowing me to speak and address this issue. I'll be brief. As you know, we are a state of 159 counties. All of us are different and very unique. What's good and meaningful for one may not be for another. As different as we are, we have something in common, and we usually find a way to find that common ground. But we want what is best for the people of Georgia. The problem comes in deciding what is best. But tonight we're talking about an issue important to everyone in the state, but from different directions. House Bill 189 wants the state to increase weight limits on trucks. It's been changed and amended, but it still has problems. The limit is now 80,000 pounds with a 4,000 difference for overage. And many loads to the maximum are used now, and they actually go over. I know that during COVID, there was a crisis and we needed to get our transportation moving, and we temporarily increased that load limit. The bill was originally 90,000 pounds, and that is an increase. And it was changed to a load of 88,000 pounds. And yes, that is a 2,000 pound less than the original bill, but it is still a 10% increase. They have also now written it in for agriculture and forestry. Both are very important industries to my district, but there is a greater need in our state. How bad can this really be? Let's look at this that's on your desks. First of all, we'll start with Florida. This is incorrect. They have an 80,000 pound limit with an 8,000 where you can have it increased for a special permit just for things that have to do with timber. The bridges, yes, there are many bridges, and they will not have to go around right now, but they will in the future when they're damaged. That means school buses will be rerouted. Other traffic will have to go another way. In rural Georgia, in case you don't know, sometimes it might be 20 miles to the next bridge. This legislature is actively seeking to increase the funding on roads. That's nice. We have a lot of money, don't we? Yes. We have a lot of money that's needed all over this state. Why would we have to supplement an industry? We're famous for picking winners and losers. The modest variance of 4,000 pounds is equivalent to an SUV. Let's take a big truck and put an SUV on it. Does that make it better for our state and our roads? Trucks are primarily on state and highways. They are on back roads, they are on county roads, and that's going to be who's paying for it. And yes, cities and counties, but you know what? They're voters too. We all represent about 59,000 people, and they are the ones that are going to have to foot this bill. Well, let's start with looking where this issue is at. Mostly in rural areas. Do you realize the weights are not even allowed on federal interstate highways? Just the city, county roads, mostly rural. These are the communities that can least afford it. So you know there will be an additional 1,217 bridges will be posted, not authorized to carry this load. This simple little increase means a 46% increase in damage and shortening pavement life by 1/3. I may not speak for all, but I speak for many in rural Georgia. I've been contacted by lots of folks in and outside of my district, and they've encouraged me to speak tonight on their behalf. This bill is destructive for roads, but especially for county roads and bridges. These communities do not have the resources to maintain or continue to fix road abuse. These are roads our children ride in school buses. They have to go over rickety bridges. This will make it worse. It's unsafe. The most important thing I can say has to do with something this body did when I first came in as a legislature. We brought legislation that required our state agencies to provide the House with justification for their budgets and what they were doing with their money. It was sort of defending your life as an agency. It was a great concept, and it worked well. I was impressed, but I think it was needed to be happening, and it did happen. Now I wonder why. Because we are being asked to totally ignore the information, the facts, the opinions from the experts. Yes, the Georgia Department of Transportation and the Department from experts of public safety. Both have said this is an unsafe bill and it's not good for our state. Georgia already has the 4th highest rate in the nation in motor carrier fatalities. Yes, it may be all carriers, but that's still a high number. Are we going for number 1? What price are we willing to pay to carry a few more logs on a truck, a few more bales of cotton? We're better than that. Get real. We all know it'll not be fewer trucks, but just heavier ones. You know, sometimes up here, we pick winners and losers. Let's pick all Georgia roads as the winners. I ask you to vote no on House Bill 189 and help to keep our roadways safe. I yield the well.
The lady has yielded the well. The chair made a misstatement a moment ago. That's all of the folks that wanted to speak that are opposed to the bill. Representative Fry would like to speak in favor of the bill. Representative Fry. You have up to 30 minutes, but we hope you won't take that long. The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Wow, this is interesting because I had no idea I was going to come up here and speak on truck weights tonight because I know so much about trucks. But you know, I've been on transportation for a couple of years, and I think it's important to really realize what the backbone of our industries are in this state. Nobody's convincing me to come up here, by the way. I'm speaking to all you folks that are on the line because I want you to look around in this room. Really, I mean this. Every single thing that you're looking at, touching, feeling, putting in your mouth right now has been brought to you by a truck. And that truck probably weighed close to 88,000 pounds, whether you like it or not, because the variance before was 84. And then you could actually, what'd they say it was 98,000 for the past 3 years or something? 95? So I think one of the important things to realize is that when we're up here, and if you've been here for a minute, you will recognize that we act like Chicken Little an awful lot. The sky is falling. If we don't pass this bill, or if we do pass this bill, it's over and done with. But let me tell you what, we're not talking about what's gonna happen. We're talking about what is already happening. Because what I do every day is I receive materials to build houses for people in this state. I need more wood in the mills. I need more bricks on the job site. I need more concrete. I need more sand. I need more granite. This is a problem. The sky has already fallen, y'all. And as we've seen over time, if we get this one wrong, we can come back. If it really does hurt the roads as much as everybody is saying, if the sky is going to fall on us when we leave here tonight because we voted yes on this bill, then we'll change it next year, or we'll change it the year after. I've seen much bigger things get changed on what I call a bait and switch a couple years later. Every single person in here has seen that. If you've been here more than a session. Y'all, this is important to the lifeblood of the state. And I think that what we're doing is we're looking at our number one industries. You hear Republicans stand up here and say, oh, we're the number one state to do business. This trucking is the number one issue that we have. Y'all, this is me. I'm literally saying that this is a big deal. Now, should that sway anybody? No, not at all. But when you look around this room and you see that every single thing that you're touching, sitting on, feeling, walking on, looking at, is brought to you by a truck that weighed almost as much as these things that we're talking about right now, the sky isn't falling. The sky fell. And we just need to do some things out of this body that promote home building, home ownership, and our construction industry to face the number one crisis that we have faced in my lifetime, which is the rising cost of people's homes. Will this be the magic panacea? I'm not even saying that. But I am telling you that this is going to make a difference. And if you do want to make a difference, I'd ask that you vote for this bill. And let's put the sky back up where it belongs and give some people some relief. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. We do have a minority report. The minority report will have 20 minutes, and the chair's time will be 20 minutes. Representative Anulowicz will speak to us now with the minority report. Representative Anulowicz has the...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, the issue before us is one of those rare session birds. It is a piece of legislation that has united members of both parties in this chamber, both for and against the measure. You have heard here, and probably out in the hallways, compelling arguments both for and against, for and again, HB 189. In the Transportation Committee, during the course of these meetings on the subject, there were 3 meetings on this topic, by the way. We have heard about 7 cumulative hours of discussion and debate on this bill. This is why I rise before you today to deliver this minority report. The minority report that we have today is the same minority report that we filed the first time this bill made it out of committee. That was a 6-hour committee meeting. And it's followed all of the different substitutes for this bill because none of the concerns that were raised in the minority report have been addressed in any of these substitutes. We have heard about how HB 189 would financially benefit several undoubtedly and arguably important industries in our state. My concerns, though, are that this bill's passage will also be to the financial detriment of taxpayers in this state and that it is a threat to safety. First, the money. The Georgia Department of Transportation is steadfast in their opposition to HB 189. The crew at GDOT excels in several areas. 2 of them, just 2, they have many areas, but 2 of them I'm talking about now are engineering and math. Even with this substitute bill to the original weight request, GDOT is clear that HB 189 would still double the number of bridges in the state of Georgia that would be restricted from carrying a legal load. It nearly doubles the number of bridges that will not be allowed to carry a legal load as defined by this bill. This means that these heavier trucks will be forced to detour around these bridges. Some of the detours we discussed in committee were more than 20 miles. Some of them were more than 30 miles out of the way, and these detours are not going to happen on only state roads. They're going to be on city roads, they're going to be on county roads, and these heavy trucks weighing 88,000 pounds or more will be obliged to travel on these city and county roads, the ones that we pay for with our local tax dollars. And these are not just log trucks. These are not just poultry trucks or cotton trucks. These are mining trucks. These are ore trucks. These are solid waste trucks. These are poultry waste trucks. That's all in the bill. If you hang around with civil engineering folks long enough, you're going to learn that there's this thing called the Pavement Design Fourth Power Rule. I promise I'm not going to get into it. Basically, it's that the stress on the road increases in proportion to the 4th power of the axle load of the vehicle traveling on the road. I will not make you do the math. GDOT already did, and they know that an 88,000-pound truck will yield a 46% increase in pavement damage. These heavier trucks mean pavement damage will happen faster, and it'll be far more devastating, beyond just potholes, these are going to be structural issues, than it has been in the past. Structural damage to our roads and bridges will accelerate. The life of a pavement job will be 1/3 shorter than it was engineered to be. Cities and counties plan out their road building, their road paving. They do this schedule, and it's done with a great deal of thought, and it's done based on how long they think these roads will last. It's going to mess everything up. All of these plans are going to be, everything's going to deteriorate faster than it otherwise would. So that means that our state and our counties and our cities are going to need to commensurately accelerate how they fund roads and bridges, which is going to happen, again, at a cost to taxpayers and at the expense of funding for other infrastructure projects throughout our state, both the necessary ones that we need to keep goods and people moving throughout Georgia, as well as the innovative ones. The ones that we've been talking a lot about, how we plan to update our freight and logistics network to meet our 21st century demands. We've heard about additional funding, and I think it's fantastic. But none of that is finalized, and it's also about $5 billion short of what GDOT estimates we're actually going to need to stay caught up with how we will need to accelerate our road and bridge projects. My other concern is safety. Under ideal conditions, it takes a fully loaded truck the length of about 2 football fields to stop. That's ideal conditions. That's not rain, that's not haze, it's not fog, that's not a truck that might have some safety violations. I'm not going to make y'all do physics or math, but the heavier the load is, the further the stopping distance. That is indisputable. We heard testimony in committee. I've received phone calls and emails from the family members of survivors of folks who died in these kinds of truck accidents with these heavy trucks, and nothing in this bill that we are about to vote on suspends these laws of physics when one of these crashes happens. The Georgia State Patrol Motor Carrier Compliance Division shared sobering data with us in committee. Over the past 3 years, fatalities resulting from these crashes has increased. So we've had, we know we've had this since the pandemic started. Fatalities have increased. Georgia is the 8th largest state in terms of population, but we are number 4 for fatalities in these accidents. The Motor Carrier Compliance Division does an outstanding job at making sure these trucks are roadworthy, but that's no small feat. Just last year, they found 74,000 safety violations. 74,000. And 2022 DPS data shows that brake, tire, and suspension violations combined account for 50% of all violations cited towards log trucks. Not all trucks, log trucks. 50%. 23% of them were for brakes, about 19% were load securement, 16% were for tires, 13% were for suspensions. If this bill passes, a major industry will be pleased. Will they be satisfied? I don't know. I doubt it. I think we'll hear more about this issue in the future, regardless of what happens today in this room. Meanwhile, if the bill passes, our taxes will be higher, our roads will be less safe, and I hope you will join me in voting no on HB 189. I yield the well.
The lady has yielded the well. We'll now hear from the chairman, 20 minutes. Chairman of the committee from which the legislation came, the Transportation Committee. Chairman Jaspers is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last year, the Transportation Committee heard a similar bill. At that moment during the discussion in the committee, I felt that they needed to work more on the bill. So we didn't take a vote on it. I felt at that moment they had not explained their situation and made their case to the Transportation Committee. And I want to brag on the committee in a minute, but I want to brag on Chairman Meeks and the work he's done, very clearly explaining the situation in this community. Our bill sponsor has been very responsive to the committee. They've changed many things that many of you asked for. Trailer certification, making sure the trailer can carry the weight that's appropriate for it. The penalties, if you look at the end of the bill, the penalties are significant, and the weight changes. In the minority report, they did kind of mention the meetings we had. We did have a record 6-hour meeting on this committee. But I want to tell you that the committee members asked 90 questions of the bill presenters, the special guest, and I didn't think it was going to last that long, and I've had to apologize for weeks for having that meeting. But it was very good that we all got together, and the neat thing about transportation, I say all the time, it's bipartisan because it's all of us in every facet of our community. The bill passed at that moment after that meeting. The fine rules chairman looked at that bill and said, you need to work on it some more. He sent it back. We had another meeting. It was a little bit shorter, quite a bit shorter, but it reduced the weights and narrowed the scope. Rules chairman, in his wisdom, sent it back to me again. This time we had an hour meeting and a lot of discussion around that bill. And that's where we're at today, what you have in your hands. So there was a thorough vetting by the committee of very responsible committee members that voted to pass this bill out. And I did what I promised last year. And I think it's what many of us want to do here, but maybe don't get done sometimes, is have an active discussion and debate amongst the members. And I know we've all heard from home, their businesses and communities, and you've heard an earful. But this is one you get to make the choice in. And I say again, I'm very proud of the committee and the work that they did. One thing I do know, that 10 years ago when I voted to approve House Bill 170, it has funded the repair of many roads and bridges across our state. But it's not enough. And we need to look at further ways to improving funding, and I'm dedicated to doing that. You know, House Bill 189 will help some, really many. If you were in the committee, you would have heard the gentleman from Butts County and the current 3-year change that's made a difference in his life and his family's life and their logging business. You know, because they use our roads too. And I was sitting here thinking, yeah, it's going to increase wear and tear on our roads, but that's what we work on them for. We continuously work on them. And I think the committee worked very hard to find a balance. And I think they have done that. That's why I support this bill. I want to yield the remainder of my time to Whip Burchett. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The chairman has yielded the well. Whip Burchett has the remainder of the chairman's time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm not going to take up too much time, but I do want to come up here and talk about this bill, House Bill 189. I get it. This is a tough issue. I understand it's a tough issue for everybody in this chamber. But you got to ask yourself, are we here to grow with Georgia, or are we here to stop growth? Because the impetus for this bill is exactly the same reason that the governor has an executive order right now for 95,000 pounds. We've been operating under that 95,000 pounds for 3 years. 3 years, 95,000 pounds on every road in this state, in every industry in this state, not just ag and timber and aggregate. Every industry has been operating this way for 3 years. 3 years we've been operating, and the reason is this, simply put, we don't have enough truck drivers. We do not have enough truck drivers. There are not enough truck drivers to carry the loads. Without the 95,000 pounds, we heard from family logging outfits. Toby McDowell, he's got 6 kids. He said, but for the executive order, he would have went completely out of business. He was operating at something like 9 drivers. All the 4 of his drivers left him and went to the ports, which, by the way, folks, the ports, everyone fails to mention this. Currently, right now, out of the port, you can haul 100,000 pounds in a container. But it's a federal permit. 100,000 pounds is being hauled right now out of the port to somewhere in your district. You know, in committee we talked about, well, that's a federal permit and they can't go on local roads. They can only go on local roads if they're picking up or they're delivering. Now you tell me, what else does a truck do? What else does a truck do? It either picks up or delivers, or it's parked sleeping. So you got 100,000 pounds traveling on your local roads right now. Currently, there's nothing we can do about it. It is a federal permit. There is nothing we can do about it. 100,000 pounds. And we were at 95,000 pounds for 3 years. And then if my folks in South Georgia and rural Georgia remember the fires, you remember the fires 07 and 13, those big forest fires we had? Every time one of those happens, we have an executive order to do the same thing, haul larger loads, because we got to get all that wood out of the woods and to the mill before it rots. This is not something that there's no precedent for. We have been doing this. We have continued to do this. And all we're asking for, last year I brought the bill for 95,000 pounds. And then this year, Representative Meeks brings 90,000 pounds. And frankly, we've been trying to negotiate with GDOT. Did you just hear me? I'm standing here in the General Assembly in the House of Representatives trying to negotiate with a department. Do you know how backwards that is? Do you know how backwards that is? We are the policymakers. We determine policy. The executive departments implement our policy. That's the way it goes, folks. Since when have you ever seen a department take a pro or against stance on anything? This is the only one I know of. Neutral, neutral, neutral. That's what they do because we are the policymakers. We have said and gotten commitments from the author, and I've spoken directly to our appropriations chair. I recognize there has to be some money included in this. I recognize that. But for goodness sakes, folks, we're talking about, one of the prior folks in here said, this is going to be good for major industry. This is not major industry. This is your mom and pop operations. The logger. We heard from a cattle feed gentleman, and what he said was this: for every 10 trucks he hauls, he takes at the higher weight. That's one less trip he has to make. If he's feeding all these cows, hauling them to wherever he's hauling them, he can go 2 months rather than a month and a half with the extra weight. So every 2 months he makes a trip. That's one half trip off every time. I mean, I think in committee what we talked about that was confusing is we said, this is going to take trucks off the road. It's going to be less trips, folks. That's it. It's as simple as this. If you're hauling 100,000 pounds or 95,000 pounds, or with this, 88,000 pounds, you only have a certain amount, particularly for foresters, that you can haul to the mill. So for the extra 4,000 pounds, what is that? I don't know what the math is. Somebody help. 22 trips, you take one off. Is that right? 22 trips, you take one truck off. You're hauling the same amount of weight. We're adding 4,000 pounds. 4,000. Currently, we're at 95,000. We're reducing the weight that we're operating under from the executive order to 88,000 pounds. And it doesn't say that you have to haul 88. You do not have to haul 88,000 pounds. There was testimony in committee that said this. They're claiming that the bridges are going to be posted. All the bridges are going to be posted in the state of Georgia. I would submit to you that every bridge should already be posted. In fact, the commissioner said we should have already posted these bridges. We should have posted these bridges. When we asked these loggers, we said, do you understand that this could mean you have to make a longer trip? He said, sir, I've got to make a longer trip now. I have to make the determination of whether to load my truck light or make a longer trip. I do that every day right now. And a posted bridge, folks, doesn't mean you can't cross the bridge. A posted bridge says if you're at this weight with this many axles, you can't cross the bridge. So some bridges you're going to be able to cross at 88. Some bridges you're going to be able to cross at 80. It doesn't mean you're not going to be able to cross at all. 95, recognize that we need help. Current. All right, I'm just checking my notes here. Making sure I ain't missing anything. I'm messing my flow up. I apologize. Listen, this really just boils down to this. Do you guys want the opportunity to sit here and drive policy to continue to grow Georgia? Are we going to grow Georgia? Or are we just going to stop? Our roads are getting tore up right now. I mean, the road argument to me is just, it's not a great argument because we're talking about electric vehicles. You know what the difference between a Tesla and a Camry is? 2,500 pounds. That's 2,500 extra pounds. And the road is just over and over again traveling that. The extra weight is going to tear it up. We have got to grow with Georgia. This is a bill for you guys to grow with Georgia. Everybody in this chamber needs to take the opportunity right here and say, we want to grow. We don't want to stymie the growth of our economy. This is where we take the stand, folks. This is where you can take the stand, and I hope you will take the stand with me. And I know you want me to get out of the well, so I'm going to get out of the well right now because I know you're tired of it, and I'm starting to ramble on. So I would appreciate if you all would just support this bill. And Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? Chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. For what purpose does Representative Okoye rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that I am a licensed civil engineer and have practiced for decades? And I am of the opinion that this bill is dangerous. And Mr. Speaker, if I would have asked everybody not to vote for this bill, but since this is a parliamentary inquiry, I wouldn't do that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I appreciate your inquiry. I'm sure the gentleman believes of what he states. For what purpose does Representative Ridley, Jason Ridley, rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true, Mr. Speaker, that I got one of the busiest inland ports in the state of Georgia, and as Chairman, or as Whip Burchett just said, they can haul 100,000 pounds, and we hadn't had to change our roads a bit.
I'm sure the gentleman knows of what he states and knows his area. For what purpose does Chairman Stevens rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, isn't it true that I'm voting yes for this bill because this is a weight decrease over what we've had over the past 3 years, and that I hope others will see that as well?
I'm sure the chairman knows of what he speaks. For what purpose does Chairman Chokas rise?
Mr. Speaker, parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Yes, sir. Mr. Speaker, isn't it true that as chairman of small business, I feel it is my responsibility to take care of small business? And many of these truckers are small business people. And this is their livelihood, and they depend upon this. They need the income to support their families, and if they can carry 5% more, that's an increase because they can make 5% more to provide an income for their families. Thank you, sir.
I'm sure the gentleman believes that the points he just made. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 93, the nays 81. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, if you'll read the caption to House Bill 353. House Bill 353.
House Bill 353 by Representative Powell, the 33rd, to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 27 of Title 50, the Official Code of Georgia, annotated the Georgia Lottery for Education Act, so as to provide that the administrative procedures and actions regarding bona fide coin-operated amusement machines shall be subject to Chapter 13 of Title 50. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Higher Education, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chairman Alan Powell is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen of the House. You know, before I start, I want to tell you how much
Gentlemen, yield. Let's give your attention to the gentleman in the well. Recognized again.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen. Before I start, I want to thank the members of the Regulated Industries Committee the same way I did this morning. You know, that committee that I'm honored to chair, we've got a lot of unique members of that committee. And that, you know, a lot of the subject matters that we handle are picking winners and losers, but we also get into the weeds on trying to correct a lot of the industries and a lot of the licensed businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, there's nothing that's more license regulated than the coin-operated amusement industry today. Not just now, but it goes back for years, and I mean decades, that this industry has been regulated. Now, this may not be a blue blood industry to a lot of folks. There's a lot of money that's involved. There's been a lot of competition between the masters and the retailers. There's been a lot of claw scratching amongst these folks to get the business and to try to hold on to these locations. But I want to tell you, there's nothing that creates more money for the lottery today. Back several years ago, this House and this legislature, they tethered these machines to the Lottery Commission. And they did it for several reasons. One was that the proceeds go to the lottery. And I would tell you today that the biggest and the fastest growing area of proceeds to the Georgia Lottery has been the COAM industry. These people, they have two types of machines, A's and B's. You know the A's, those are what you see, the kiddie games we call them, the claw games, the things that you put your money in to try to pull out some kind of a prize that may or may not be worth the time to do it. And the others, these game machines that are non-cash redemption skill games. Well, ladies and gentlemen, when I say I want to thank the committee, you know, I especially want to thank them because they have stepped to the bat for the last couple of years, and this year especially. At the first of the legislative session, we had the Lottery Oversight Committee, and it was quite revealing. Democrats, Republicans, freshmen, seniors, they all stepped to the plate this year when there were questions that were being answered about certain things that were going on in the industry. And this is just like last year. The bill got held up in the Senate when it passed out of the House. The year before that, some of the senators locked down over there because they were, for whatever their relationship was with some of the masters and some of those folks in the industry. But this has been a difficult process to try to pass forward some things that are going to improve this industry. It's going to create a better industry and a more transparent industry. And before you today, you have House Bill 353. And I'm going to tell you in brief what some of the points are, and then I'm going to go over the bill. One that allows gift cards for non-cash redemption. The Georgia Lottery Commission instituted a pilot program 2 years ago. And it took 2 years for them to finally come to us. And when they came back in January in the hearings, they admitted that this was probably a pretty good way of going. When I started this process a few years ago about the gift cards, it was to try to hem up the last of the folks that were paying out cash illegally. And that has pretty well done. And with this universal gift card as a non-cash redemption gift card, then that should lock the rest of that down. But more important, it's going to bring in a lot more receipts, not just to them, but also to the lottery itself. So I want you to remember that, because these people are in partnership with your Lottery Commission, ladies and gentlemen. And I keep hearing people say, well, maybe these folks make too much money. Well, nobody has ever questioned what Interlot and some of the other vendors that service the lottery that have made tons of money processing the money and all for the lottery. So that, ladies and gentlemen, should tell you a little bit about this gift card. This increases the value for these Class A games to a $50 maximum that they can buy whatever and put in these claw machines and things like that, up to an amount of $50. This offers a regulated industry's protection under the Administrative Procedures Act. Over at the Lottery Commission, they have a division called the COAM division. And I would tell you that there's some issues that the committee had, as well as some of these folks that are in the industry. A lot of their rules and regs aren't always published. There's not a lot of room for negotiation or anything such as that. So what we're asking is that they be put under the Administrative Procedures Act. If y'all remember when I handled the bill earlier this morning, I said it then, and I still believe it. Every state agency needs to be under the Administrative Procedures Act so that there's sunshine and open government so that people can see what's going on. We heard the gentleman give such an eloquent speech a while ago about the relationship with some of these departments and state agencies. Well, you know, that's not just this legislature setting policy with the Department of Transportation, but it's also setting policy with these other agencies that we need to know what they're doing and what's going on. And I'll get into that a little bit further into the bill. This exempts the veteran and fraternal organizations, the VFWs, the American Legions, the AMVETS, people like that. This allows them to put in those machines now that they have been banned for several years because of the 50-50 rule. And a lot of these organizations have laid siege to say, we want to be able to put these in our places of business, the restaurants and the bars and such as that. Provides billiards and darts. I know that seems rather trivial, but there's a couple of trivial issues over there at the COAM division that they don't even allow these electronic dart and billiard machines that are in the places of business to even have tournaments. And I mean tournaments not sanctioned by the machines themselves, but by the owners of those establishments. But that would allow that. This requires a public auction in the cases of related settlements for revocation or non-renewal. I'm going to get into a little bit of the weeds on this. We had a situation over at the COAM division back at the end of last year. There was one of the major COAM master licensees that had violated a lot of the major infractions of the law that we call the deadly sins, and they were going to lose their license. Well, they didn't, the Lottery COAM division didn't do a non-renewal. They didn't do a revocation, they did a non-renewal. Well, instead of them auctioning off or sanctioning, they had an attorney that filed a threatening letter to them. They were going to sue them. And what came of that was the Lottery, the COAM division, basically allowed them to transfer all the assets out so they wouldn't have to pay any fines. Those fines, I'm told, were going to amount to somewhere around $10 million. Major company, ladies and gentlemen. But at the same time, last year, I had a chance to go to bat for one of the small folks. And we're not talking about all big operators. We're talking about 189 licensees for master licenses in this state. You probably have excess of 100 are what you call the mom and pops, the small master licensees that work the stores, that put the machines, they pay for the machines, they put them in to do a 50-50 split, and then the state lottery gets 5% off of each one of them for a total of 10% that goes into the lottery funds. So there's a lot of things that need to be dealt with. So that being said, I want to go through the bill real quick so you can see what's in the bill. If you'll look at Section 1, this puts the Lottery COAM division under the Administrative Procedures Act. Basically, they would, when they publish their rules, they'd have to publish them so that the public can see and make comments on them. In Section 2, we raised the prize to $50 on these, the Class A machines, the kiddie games. The gift card is defined in here, ladies and gentlemen. Let me speak a little bit on this gift card. I realize that a lot of people don't understand what these machines or how they operate, but I continue to tell people the difference between gambling and gaming is where they pay out cash. COAM machines are non-cash redemption. It's the things that historically they've always been able to trade if they win points on a machine or ever how they play these things, that they can buy or trade for certain things in the store, but no cash is supposed to be allowed. So this gift card will do that and even more. This gift card can then be taken out and it can be traded for other items, merchandise, restaurants, wherever they might go if they win. Not familiar with this. I tend to, if I like to gamble, I plan on doing it on a table rather than a machine. But ladies and gentlemen, people do like these machines. These are non-cash redemption gift cards. They're programmed so they cannot accept or refund any cash. And that's generally what the gift card does. If you go on down, it allows for billiards and darts in section at the bottom of section 3. Section 4, or at the end of section 3, we're dealing with the public auction. What I'd spoke of a while ago, if a licensee has an infraction of the law, then they're mandated that they will auction off that property to the highest bidder. That way there's no steerage, no hanky-panky, and certainly not being able to skate out from paying your lawfully due fines that you owe the commission. Section 4 says that the Lottery Commission that they will sell and auction off a license every 3 years. Section 5 deals with the 50% rule. This basically says that the 50% rule will be computed on a quarterly basis and not a monthly basis for a lot of the seasonal businesses. Also, it allows for what I'd said earlier, the fraternal and military organizations to be able to put these machines in their places of business. Section 6 deals with allowable fixtures, to say that the masters that furnish these machines, that they can furnish the chairs, the stools, and signs on the wall to remind people not only how to play the machine, but also that these are non-cash redemptions. And then last but not least, when you get to the end of the bill in Section 7, this deals with things such as frivolous lawsuits. There's been numerous cases where a lot of the masters have gone to bat with the retailers out there in what was considered frivolous lawsuits. What this says is that basically loser pays. Disgorgement if you lose, so that they can move on and clean up this industry. Now that's what the bill does, and I'll give you another footnote to this. Interesting enough, that times have become quite interesting for these folks. They've hired every lobbyist in the world over the years. They've been able to defeat this bill in the years because it was a major ongoing war between a lot of these competitors in this business. Now all of a sudden, they understand that they've been their own worst enemy. That, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is what this bill does. I would encourage you to vote for this bill to try to clean up this industry and to move forward with it, because they are one of the fastest and the largest growing sources of revenue for the Georgia Lottery. Mr. Speaker, I'll be glad to yield for any questions.
The gentleman has 2 questions.
Yes, sir.
Recognize Representative Fleming, right straight in front of you. Representative Fleming is recognized for a question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the gentleman in the well, first of all, thank you for speaking with me about your bill, and I did exactly what I said I would do. I went back and read it so I could try to understand what was in it. I direct you to line 113 of the bill, which is page 5. As I understand this, we are right there on line 112. It uses the word billiards, so we're allowing people to play billiards with this bill, correct?
Billiard tournaments.
Okay.
Coin operated. A lot of the billiard tables and dart games today, it's not what we grow up using. These things are coin operated machines.
All right, so if you look on line 113, it says that billiards should be defined as section 43, 8-1. And I want to see if you agree with me. When I looked up what that code section was, it says billiards means a game played on a table surrounded by an elastic ledge of cushions with balls which are impelled by a cue. That sounds like pool to me.
Sound like billiards.
Okay. So, and I want to ask you about line 121. It says it may be conducted on a bona fide coin-operated amusement machine or a non-coin operated device. Isn't that your pool table right there?
That would be a pool table.
Okay. Now, if I understand this, the limit is $50 for a Visa gift card. Is that correct?
I don't think so. I don't think there's a limit on the gift cards that the lottery has been doing under their pilot program.
So it's more than $50?
I think it could be.
Okay, well, I had only calculated it at 50. But if you can bet on pool, and a pool has 15 balls at $50 a ball, that would be a $750 pool game, wouldn't it? That we're legalizing.
Well, it's
on this
obvious
bill?
to me that you spent more time going to law school than shooting pool.
I did. But I think they call it betting per ball, don't they?
I don't know where you got the $50 at in this. Those lines that you're talking about, coin-operated pool tables and coin-operated dart games, they're regulated under the COAM laws of the state.
Let me ask you, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I apologize.
And what a lot of these folks do, they want to have tournaments. As you know, believe it or not, there's actually coin-operated pool tables and dart boards in pubs and bars and restaurants and places like that. And a lot of things that they want to do, and that's to draw people for entertainment, to have billiard tournaments, to have dart tournaments. And that doesn't have anything to do with a coin-operated machine.
Except for the fact on line 121 now, we can use pool tables.
A pool table or a billiard table.
Now let me ask you a question, if I may, please, about line 168. Starting on line 162, this is the portion of the bill which says basically you got to be a convenience store. You got to have 50% of your revenue coming from something other than these machines,
That's
correct?
the 50-50 rule.
But we're about to suspend that rule on line 168 for fraternal benefit associations, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if the Elks Club wants to open up a pool hall at $750 a table, they can do that under this bill, right?
Well, again, I'm not sure which school you went to about shooting pool, but I don't know about a $750 table. What that says that we have a 50-50 rule that was enacted back 20 years ago to say that you can't have these coin-operated machines unless you have 50% of your proceeds are from merchandise or other sources of revenue. And what we're saying is that a lot of the VFWs, a lot of the AMVETs, the American Legions that have their lodges, they may want to put these machines in their places of business, and it exempts them from the 50-50 rule. I don't know how much beer you can sell at a VFW, but probably not as much to offset what these machines may do.
But if I'm not mistaken, we're also exempting on line 168, not just VFWs, but fraternal benefit associations, which is why I use the
Historical,
term the Elks Club.
fraternal benefit associations or veteran organizations.
Okay. The last part I wanted to ask you about was, if I may, over in section 4, line 6. It looks like on line 134.
Which line,
I'm sorry,
gentlemen?
134, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
I'm trying to understand this. It looks like that we're issuing up to 220 new licenses with this bill. Is that correct?
Now, I think that is current law.
Well, we're putting in a new effective date of 2023, and on line 134 it says 220 licenses, and if you read on down through line 137 through 141, it says that the current holders shall not be affected by this limit. Isn't that correct?
The current law allows, that was effective on July the 1st of 2015, which is about 8 years ago almost. It allowed for 220 Class B master licensees. And that changes the date that effective on July the 1st of 2023, this year, upon the enactment of this legislation, that the Lottery Commission will then auction off one additional master every 3 years.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Gentleman, yield for another question.
Yes, sir.
To your left, Representative Jasmine Clark is recognized for a question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
So when this bill came through higher education, it was a bit rushed, and so I tried to ask this question, and I wasn't able to necessarily get an adequate answer just because of time. This bill will now allow for payouts using gift cards, and according to the IRS, gift cards are considered cash equivalents. So how is this not bringing basically a casino game into our retailers?
Well, you're reading the IRS code, but that doesn't affect Georgia law. In Georgia, we've always identified, thanks to the courts back many decades ago, that non-cash means non-cash. You're not gambling if you don't pay out in cash. That's the reason it was called non-cash redemption. And these gift cards that the lottery has been using for the last 2 years in a pilot, these things are restricted, whatever the technology is, that these gift cards can only be used for merchandise or services, but they can't be traded in for cash. One of the good members asked me the question this morning about these gift cards. It said, what would stop you from taking a gift card that might have $50 or $100 on it and taking it and buying a can of, I believe it was a can of beans, and then getting cash? Well, these cards are designed and controlled as such. You know, they can do anything with these type of cards, and they cannot be allowed to cash in for cash.
Does the gentleman further yield?
Yes, ma'am.
So that definitely makes sense to me if we're talking about, let's say, a retail gift card. Like if I have a Walgreens gift card or a CVS gift card or a gas station gift card. But if I have a gift card with a Visa logo on it, that is basically considered cash equivalent, because I don't have to use it at that particular store. I can use it to buy anything, anywhere, the same way I would be able to use cash.
That's the reason these gift cards will be controlled by the lottery as to what's acceptable under Georgia law, that they cannot be used to be redeemed for cash.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentleman, yield for another question.
Yes, sir.
Representative Bernal of the 77th has a question. Representative Rhonda Bernal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
With these machines, are they going to be spread out evenly throughout the state so that the benefactors of using a lottery, the money won't just come from certain neighborhoods?
If you're asking me, are these machines, will they be spread out or can
Yes.
they be? I think they're pretty spread out right now.
Okay, because does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because we don't have that many of those machines right now in Clayton County, and we don't want them. But I just want to make sure that they're not just placed in neighborhoods of economically disadvantaged people only.
Well, that only depends on whether the merchant wants to put them there or not, quite frankly. And if I would say that for those neighborhoods that don't like these machines, then they need to petition the folks that own the business not to put them into place.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Most of those individuals live in those neighborhoods. They don't know that they have that right to not have those machines in their neighborhood.
Well, I'm not sure exactly what you mean, the rights. If somebody owns a store or a restaurant or something like that, that's their business. It's a lawful game, and they can put them in if the people want to patronize it. If they don't want to patronize it, then that owner of that location would probably not have them in there, because it does take up floor space in a retail setting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentleman has one more question. Representative Paris has a question. To your right.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman, do you know the general demographic of the average COAM user?
I'm sorry, I do not.
You do not.
I think it's pretty well equal opportunity. Anybody wants to play these machines, since we don't have legalized gambling in this state.
You know what?
I think that's probably one of the reasons that people go to those type of plays, to play for non-cash.
So they tend to, will he yield further?
Certainly.
They tend to be in poor neighborhoods, and that's generally who's playing the machines. One further question, do you yield? One further question, do you yield?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. So what is the general demographic of the HOPE recipient? Do you know that?
I have no idea, whoever qualifies for the Hope Scholarship.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, if there's no other questions, I would certainly appreciate your consideration to vote and move this bill forward something that helps to clean up this industry a little bit more and to move it forward. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Gentleman has yielded the will. We do have another speaker signed up, and he waves. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 127, the nays 46. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to House Bill 343?
House Bill 343 by Representative Newton of the 127th, being entitled an act to amend Chapter 64, Title 33 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to regulation and licensure of pharmacy benefit managers, so as to provide for definitions to require pharmacy benefit managers to calculate defined cost sharing for insureds at the point of sale, and to provide for statutory construction. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Health, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chairman Newton is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I'll be brief. House Bill 343 is a policy that passed last year overwhelmingly here in the House. It did stall over in the Senate. This legislation in House Bill 343 is legislation to save patients on their out-of-pocket costs for their needed medications. It does this by calculating the out-of-pocket cost, their deductible or their 20% copay, basing this on the post-discount or the post-rebate price rather than the higher list price. Now, there were some earlier concerns with previous versions regarding the potential effect on insurance premiums, and so there's several new parts to this bill for that particular reason. Number one, this doesn't really have any effect on ERISA plans. Those are federally regulated and outside the jurisdiction of us or the Department of Insurance. Second, this bill would pass 50% of the rebate benefit to the patient. It would leave the other 50% for the insurance company or PBM to utilize to lower premiums, administrative expenses, or whatever. There was one state fiscal note on a body that was looking at one of these that found that the estimated effect on a premium might be an increase, but it would be an increase of 0.1%, a tenth of a percent. So about on our $980 a month state health benefit, that would be about 98 cents. A month would be the impact. So we think it'll be minimal, but just because of that and out of abundance of caution, this bill does add an end-of-the-year transparency reporting process to the Department of Insurance, just to be careful that we can look at the effect of anything on premiums. It also will give this body and the Department of Insurance an opportunity to continue to improve patient access and needed affordability. This legislation is especially important for patients, constituents, family members who may not have a need that can be solved with surgical intervention or medical procedures that might have a list price and a lower contracted price, but those who have a unique or illness that might need a fairly costly medication, maybe even a life-changing medication, potentially even a life-saving medication, and the benefit that comes from those. This would treat those patients fairly, minimal or no effect on premiums. We think it would be good for this body to pass this. I hope that you can, once again, support those patients with your yes vote on House Bill 343. Mr. Speaker, I'll yield for any questions.
You have a question if you'll yield.
Certainly.
Representative Jason Ridley has a question to your right. Gentleman's recognized.
Gentleman, yield.
I will.
Is it true that this gives the discounts more on the name brand stuff, but not on the generic?
Typically, the rebates, which can be significant, but they are on the newer medications, some of them, as I mentioned, life-changing or life savings, but it's not usually not generics that have any rebates.
Okay, and so does it drive up the price on the generic? Like if I'm taking generic, does it drive up the price on that?
It should have no effect on the price of generics. They should stay low as they are.
All right, thank you.
Gentleman has no further questions.
Thank you, and I appreciate your support on House Bill 343.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there an objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 168, the nays 3. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. We're going to take up one more piece of legislation. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to House Bill 206? House Bill 206.
House Bill 206 by Representative States and the 180th to be entitled an act to amend Title 36 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to local government so as to provide for the creation of commercial property assessed conservation, energy, and resiliency development authorities in certain counties and municipalities. This bill I am referred to the Committee on Governmental Affairs. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chairman Saines is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be quick. This bill creates a structure to for qualified projects to go from a 12 to 14% traditional loan to a 5 to 7% long-term 30-year loan. It's the Commercial Property Assessed Conservative Energy and Resiliency Program. It would go through an authority that could be the same as the Economic Development Authority, and it would only be for qualified projects in terms of anything that would be above building code or in areas hit by natural disasters. It would be able to be used for the rebuilding and resiliency of that project. If there is no questions, I'd ask for your favorable consideration. There is no public funds used in the process of the loan. It would be for capital providers.
The gentleman yield for a question. You do have some questions.
I'll yield for one question.
How about a couple? You have two chairs that want to ask you a question.
I'll yield for two.
Chairman Knight, to your right, has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the gentleman that, well, do you yield?
Yes, sir.
I apologize for not talking to you earlier. Obviously, on crossover, there's a lot going on, and I apologize for not seeing this bill earlier. But there were several things that caught my attention in this bill. One is page 7, line 147 through 155. The language is such that the authority talking about paying any taxes or assessments imposed by the state, county, municipal corporations, political subdivision, taxing districts upon any property that is acquired by the authority. Later on, a couple of sentences down, it also talks about that the income therefore in shall at all times be exempt from taxation within the state. And it's also talking about a tax exemption shall not include any exemption from sales tax, which again, it's explicitly taking that one out. But I have some questions, and could you explain the issue of basically tax exemption, both income, it appears from here, income and property assessments?
I would let the gentleman know that these authorities would be a conduit for the capital private capital provided by the request of the invested business. It is meant as a conduit in Georgia. We require this structure to do this kind of loan because of our gratuities clause. It is language that was developed through looking at our Downtown Development Authority legislation. I'm not going to tell the gentleman that it's the same in each legislation, but that is the premise of the bill. And again, any government dollars utilized in the administration of procuring the private equity loan can be returned as an administrative percentage.
Gentleman, further yield.
For one question.
Also, line 132 through 135, could you, sometimes it's weird where we see combinations of the different types of properties, but we go from assessed conservation, which I'm not sure conservation may mean conservation of our natural resources, usually what this body thinks to be conservation, to all the way to willingness of agricultural properties to multifamily. I'm not sure how this is working with agriculture and conservation as far as our natural resources.
The bill cannot be used for single-family residential homes, and it has to meet a specific criteria, which the gentleman's noted part of it. In terms of conservation, the way I would explain it in layman's term would be anything that is above code would be seen as conservation-related improvement based on the energy. And I would further add that the Bankers Association is neutral on this bill. It does require, if there's a bank note, that that bank give approval for them to receive the capital. With that, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield the well.
The gentleman had another question, but he's yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 134, the nays 38. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. For what purpose does Representative Barry Fleming rise? Excuse me, Tim Fleming.
Mr. Speaker, isn't it not, parliamentary inquiry, please. Isn't it not true this House is adorned by some beautiful legislative spouses like yours and mine, but even more so by some wonderful legislative spouses that have been here all day long working with this legislative page program we have, and I think it's fitting that we thank them for that, for their hard work today along with the pages.
The gentleman knows of what he speaks. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions
honoring the life and memory of Dr. Robert Weston Waymer? honoring the life and memory of William Harold Smith. Honoring and commending Porsche Fox, honoring commending Wendy F. Williams, honoring commending Alicia Cruz, commending Jack and Jill of America, recognizing February 25th, 2023 as Belize Day, recognizing March 16th, 2023 as Nurses Day at the State Capitol, honoring and commending Kristen Klingshirn, congratulating and commending Carolyn McKenzie Turner for receiving the 2023 Yellow Rose Nikki T. Randall Service Leader Award, commending Jerry Farber and recognizing March 11th, 2023 as Jerry Farber Day in Georgia, and commending Corporal Darrell Worth for his career as a game warden in service to the citizens of the state of Georgia. And for other purposes, that completes the reading of the privileged resolutions.
Is there any objection to adopting the privileged resolutions? Chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. We have a few announcements. Representative Alexandra is recognized for an announcement. Representative Kim Alexander. Members, please give your attention to the member in the well.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Women caucus tomorrow, room 216, 11:30. I hope I see you guys there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Gamble is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After the day that we've had, you all need to be at the fellowship tomorrow at 11 o'clock in the House Judiciary Committee room. We look forward to everyone being there bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. We'll see you in the morning. Thank you.
Leader Estration is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The chairman's lunch that was scheduled for tomorrow has been moved to Wednesday. So chairman's lunch will be Wednesday. Thank you.
Representative Scott is recognized for an announcement.
Tomorrow morning, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock a.m. at the Freight Depot, we will be having the Female Veterans Day breakfast celebration. Thank you.
That concludes our announcements. We don't have any birthdays. It's a good thing. Now we're going to recognize our pages in just a moment. You may want to hear this. When the House convenes tomorrow, when the Majority Leader makes the motion, we'll convene at 1 p.m. Now, we will spend our time tomorrow assigning the bills that come over from the Senate to the committees doing first readers, is all we'll do. We do not plan to take any votes on legislation. Again, we will assign bills to committee. We will not vote on legislation. I'll let y'all figure out the rest of that. I think you can. So we will not take any votes tomorrow. We will just be assigning bills, first readers. We have a group of dedicated pages that have stuck with us all day today. I'd love for our pages to come down the center aisle so we can give you our applause, show you our appreciation. Come on down, pages. How about Paige? Thank you, young man, for sticking with us. Members, I appreciate your attention today. We got a lot of work done, passed a lot of bills. Appreciate your attention and being here on the floor. Okay. I think we're ready. Mr. Leader, you're recognized for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand adjourned until 1 p.m. on Tuesday, March 7th, 2023.
On the motion of the Majority Leader, that this House stand adjourned until 1 p.m. Tuesday, March the 7th, 2023. All those in favor will say aye. And those opposed will say no. It's very, very clear. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.